yourself on fire.
Hi, welcome back. This video has it's been a long time in the making, so it's really the kind of final weathering stages of the Trade Federation battle tank that I had built quite some time ago, probably about a year ago now actually. So I've done some videos of painting it, colour choices, etc. I think I've done a video on how I rebuilt the cannon from brass, etc. So I had done a video, or a series of videos on the weathering, and I'd filmed parts of it as I was going through the weathering process, and my intentions were to, post a video on YouTube, but I had a bit of an issue and I might have accidentally deleted parts of it, so this video is very, very haphazard. It jumps about, and actually, and since the time of filming the weathering process, I've learned a wee bit more. For me, the whole point of this is about documenting my journey as a modeller, and all the different techniques that I learn and things, and I'm picking stuff up all the time. So I posted some pictures of the finished product in a group that I'm in, the Nerf Herders Workshop, and one of the guys in the group had made a comment about, rather than use acrylic paints for weathering, why don't you try oils? And I'd always been a bit sceptical about using oils, because I think they take quite a long time to dry, and I like the convenience of acrylics and blah blah blah. I didn't have any oil paints, didn't have any enamels, and I know a lot of guys use enamels, but that's certainly in the hobby something that's, well, not in the hobby, but certainly in the industry, supplying the hobby, it's starting to die out, the enamels. So they're harder and harder to come by. I was quite content doing the stuff with acrylics, but then, as I say, this comment had kind of spurred me on to think a wee bit more about it, and I had a chat with my friend Ollie. Ollie Barrett's a phenomenal model maker. He's done some great work, and I thought, I'll listen to what he's got to say and I'll get some hints and tips off him. So I gave it a try and it worked brilliant. I used it on the Millennium Falcon turret. Well, it's no screen accurate, so it's a Carillion freighter turret. It's a 3D printed studio scale turret, quite a sizable piece, and it was a really good experiment for me to actually use oils and how I could use them to make streaks and marks and different stuff. So a lot of the techniques used in this tank that I've done with acrylics, pretty much the same, but the difference is that when acrylic paint dries, that's it. It's really difficult to, if you make a mistake or you're not happy with something. Oil paints, because you're using a sort of White Spirit or a turpentine type thinner, you can almost reconstitute the paint. What I will do at some point is I'll do a wee video on using oil paints, that what I've learned so far. As I say, I like to document this, and it's good for other people to see as well if they're trying new things out, or So anyway, I'll stop rambling on. Have a watch at this and you can see some of the things that I've done with this. I'm quite happy with how the model turned out in the end, but there's always that bit of me thinking, I've thought about redoing it, and I don't really think I should. I'll maybe do another tank, but I don't think I should redo this one because I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. But there's always that wee bit of me is like, if I'd use wet oils to weather it, that might be pretty cool as well. So, but I can't think like that. I've built the model, I've took the learning experience from it, and I'll move on to the next one. So I've got a couple of things on the bench just now. I've got this Moncal Cruiser. It's partly primed to allow me to see where my filling lines are and what still needs to be done, and I'm just working on it. You'll see there's some, I don't know if you can see that in the video or not, but there's a few significant gaps in it. It's a resin kit. It's actually really nice. It went together a lot better than what I thought it would. but that'll appear in a video. I'll probably use oils on that at some point as well. That'll appear in a video further down the line. I'm also in the process of building a 132 Spitfire, which it's a wee bit of a departure from me of late because it's been mostly Star Wars stuff I've done, but my modelling journey started as a wee guy on model aircraft, things like Spitfires and Hurricanes and Messerschmitts, etc. So but that's a build for me personally. The Star Wars ship's a commission build, this one's a personal one for me, and I'll do a wee video on that as well. So yeah, so this is just a wee bit of an update, what's happening, and a new introduction to the video, because I'd filmed an introduction. I'm going to wipe it because it's completely irrelevant and doesn't make any sense now when you actually look at the video. So this video that's coming up is in bits and pieces. It might jump about, so I do apologise for that, but I accidentally deleted, I was clearing with my phone, accidentally deleted parts of it, and you'll see some of the things that I've done to weather the model itself. As I say, happy overall with how it turned out. Could I do better? Probably could now that I've tried a new technique with the oil paints to weather it rather than another technique. Still using acrylics to mist and airbrush and things like that, but the oils they help a bit more with the staining. One of the techniques you'll see me use is when I use like really thin paint and splodges to make like tide marks and stuff. Again, I never really appreciated how much nicer oil paint stains the model to create that sort of effect. You'll see what I mean further down the line when I come to cover this. But anyway, moving on. Enjoy the video. Feel free to drop a comment in or whatever, see what you think about it. And as I say, we'll get some stuff done with oil paints further down the line. Anyway, cheers for watching, and I'll catch you in a bit. Thank you. Just before we get into the guts of the video, here's just a wee quick look at some of the effects that can be achieved with oil paints for weathering, but more on that coming soon. And as if by magic, it's all masked off. Now, I've cut it using a scalpel. Maybe not the neatest job in the world, but I'm not too concerned. It's just going to protect all of this part here from overspray. There will be some light spraying of the colour around these sections as well, but that'll be done after the masking comes off, so we'll be able to blend that in. The colour I've gone for is Lark Dark. Again, this is my go-to colour for a lot of the suit and the streaking and stuff. We can further add in some of the weathered black colours as well if we need to just darken it slightly, change the tone or whatever, but we're going to start off with this. When I looked at the reference material, it certainly looked as though it was this or a similar sort of nice dark grey colour, so that's what we're going for. Airbrush is loaded up, ready to go, and we'll just pick one of the little indentations and we'll just start going at it. I'm not going to film this entire thing because it'll just bore everybody to death, but what we'll do is we'll come back and once I've done this, and we'll do the big reveal, and you can see exactly what's been done. It's quite a tricky bit to actually get in and out of. I don't even, that's probably quite blurry actually in my hand there. But anyway, you can see already the difference between the two. So on that side we've got the light sandy colour, and then we're starting to get a bit dark. We'll still see the sandy colour underneath, but we're going to completely eradicate that inside those little wells, and then, as I say, we'll come back, we'll take the mask off, and you can see exactly what's happening. See in a sec. Right, so we've done what we wanted to do. Got this grey paint laid down. There's a few wee bits, light patches that I can see inside, but actually I'm not going to be too hung up on that because it does kind of lend a wee bit of variation in the colour tones and stuff, so I'm fine with that. I think I might flood in at some point a bit of maybe one of the weather black colours, not quite engine black, it's a bit too dark, but we've got, where are we? Oh, they're over in the rack just now, but there's a, in fact there's, no, that's engine black there actually. Weather black and, what's the other one? Oh, you can't see it, not even got glasses on, it's too dark. Anyway, so there's two other black colours, but they're not quite black. There's I suppose ultimately they're a really dark grey, but they do have slight tinges to them. One of them's a sort of slightly purplish tinge, the other one's a bit more of a grey-green tinge. So I might flood a wee bit of them in there, just in the deeper recesses, just to, again, to add a bit more variation in colour. But let's get this mask off. Let's me stop talking a lot of rubbish. Oh, sorry. I did go a bit crazy with the tape, however, I don't really fancy having to fix overspray of grey on this light colour. I've had experience of that kind of stuff before and it's not very enjoyable. So here we go. And the first bit coming off there. That's turned out quite nice, quite pleased with that. So you can immediately see the difference. We've now got a much better contrast of the slots of the cannons. Obviously we will be adding the streak of the blast streaks, the slight sooting around here and the sort of blast streaks going back the way, which will further add to the effect. But already you can see the difference. It's dark right down and it's giving the model a bit more depth. Really pleased with that. That's excellent. Right, so we'll get the rest of this mask off and then we'll start looking at what we're going to do next. Right, so before we crack on with the weathering, I actually noticed something when I was doing a wee bit of prep work with some of the reference material that I had, and I rewatched the video as well, just for a bit of that on-screen look. What does it look like on the screen, etc. And what I noticed was this band that's along here, it's that kind of dark earthy colour. This bit here isn't actually that earth colour, so there's a nice trim going round here, stops about here roughly. All this section here is, well, this colour. So I've mixed some up for the airbrush, and just as a reminder, Reefer White, 12 parts of that, Depot Buff 1975, 25 parts of that. Strange ratio, I know, just that's how I got to the colour, mixing and matching. When I originally done it, when I was painting the Battle Droid, just to keep things in line, I used the same colour on this. Again, looking at what's on screen, to me, eye for an eye, that's kind of roughly what it looks like. We've got the slightly darker section here, which was just Depot Buff on its own. Is that right? Yep, that was just neat Depot Buff on its own, just as a contrasting panel. Anyway, so what we'll do is, we'll get this into the airbrush, we'll lay some of that down, and then we'll get moving on with the weathering. But just thought I'd point that out, because I'd painted, in the other video, I'd painted it that colour, that's the way I'd done it. So, just to save MD making the same mistake that I did. So, this is a technique, recently just used this on the Perfect Grade Millennium Falcon. As I mentioned here before, this was one I'd picked up from Andy Preston. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart there. Andy Preston had demonstrated a technique like this. He was using enamels, right enough, he wasn't using acrylics, but to me the principle works pretty much the same. You're thinner, in this case, just water. I've also got a wee drop more paint here, and then we've got just a wee spot of paint into the water, and just really what you're making up is just dirty paint water, and we're going to use that as a little filter or a wash, or not like a pin line wash or whatever you would use, like a panel liner. It's just to create a varied colour across the surface of the model, and we're basically looking to replicate some dirt and grime here. So we want it nice and thin, we don't want too much paint in there, but keep a wee bit of paint on the side just in case we need it. And actually we should also keep a wee bit of just plain water on the side as well. So and we can use that to manipulate it and move it around about, create patterns just randomly. So what we'll do is we'll just start on here, and we're just looking to push that paint around about. Get that one there, and then we'll just get a bit of water in there as well, and we'll just start to manoeuvre that round about. And eventually what you're left with is stains, marks, looks like dirt, grime, that kind of stuff. We really like to just cover the whole surface in this, to be honest. It doesn't make a huge difference to the colour of the paint. It's easily wiped if you need to. You can build it up over time. Don't apply too much at the one time, just to get the effect that we're after. And really all we're doing is just manipulating this, pushing it around a bit, creating little pools of different intensities. It's a slight off balance here. And then we can hit this with the hairdryer at a low rate as well. Helps to move the paint round about, and also helps to speed up the drying process. And so in the end you get left with tide marks and accumulations of colour, etc. And it starts to add this effect of just a build up of dirt, grime and stuff. Now, let's just experiment with a wee bit more pigment. And you just push that around. It's gone a bit nuts here. And this is really just it's an experiment. Or not experiment, but it's just it's a process that you find in your own feel for the model. What is it you're trying to achieve? Where's the dirt sitting? Where's the marks? How much weathering are you looking to apply? I've said time and time again, this is one of my downfalls, is that I apply too much weathering at times, and things can look, well, I suppose over-weathered really, can't they? We're not looking to dramatically change the model in one layer here. What we're looking to do is to just build up some variation in colour. Subtle differences. These are the things that the eye picks up. And you go, oh, look at that, that's quite interesting. There's sort of marks of dirt and grime. There's grease or rust running down that, or you know, it looks as though it's been in the wars, and that's the look we're looking to achieve here. That's the goal. Anyway, this is what we're going to be doing. And I'll go around the whole model like this, and you can see it's really not made a massive change to the model's overall look at this point, but it's just that small layer, isn't it? So we've got a little run here. Quite happy with that. Gives it a bit of a natural feel. So let's get some water across here, and then just drop some pigment in on it here and there. Now, I've got a natural slope here where colour is going to just run down, and I'm just going to work with that. Nothing looks more natural than something that's actually been done using nature, i.e. gravity, because that's effectively what we're looking for here, is runoff. You know, so that's been through a muddy terrain, and then all of a sudden the rains went down on top of it, and it started to wash it off, and it runs down. That's weathering. That's part of what weathering is. So anyway, the colour I'm using for this is 1975 Roof Brown. So really quite a dark colour, to be honest. So it's an interesting, there's a slight reddish maybe even slight purpley tinge. Definitely a reddish orange anyway. It's a nice colour. That's the colour the Sandcrawler was painted in as well, incidentally. But we're just looking to play with some of the pigments in this and see how we go. Anyway, I'll crack on with the rest of the model and then we'll come on to the next stage. Right, so that's the tank all done with the first coat of weathering. So it was a wash. Some bits hadn't dried in properly here. I'll just pick that up. So some of the bits at the front here are pretty heavy. I kind of figured that the front end's the bit that's going to probably get quite dirty the most. It looks a wee bit harsher in camera than what it does in person. But not to worry, that'll get knocked back as things build up with our weathering coats, misting and bits and pieces. Now, just very quickly, something I wanted to point out, these streaks. So I'm not sure how well I explained that right at the start, but what I was doing here was I was wetting this just with some water and taking a wee bit of the neater paint rather than the watered down stuff that I was using for the wash. So a bit of the neater paint and actually just starting at the top and just letting the paint actually dissolve into the water and have the water just carry the paint down. Give that a wee help here and there with the brush and just teasing it down and actually almost like effectively you're creating a natural streak. I was able to build that up. A few times, like for example with this one. I didn't go too daft with it because, well, like I've said before, my weathering can often get just a bit excessive because I can't help myself. I do one streak, then I've got to do another, and then I've got to do another, and so on and so forth, and it just ends up too much. I did want some accumulation of dirt at the back here in some of these parts, because if you think if you get the water kind of running off here, running down here, and this seemed like a natural point here for it to come down. So I kind of almost built that one up in a couple of layers. Some of the bits I've got sort of lighter, sort of stippling with the brush, and the watered down pigment. But really the streaks here was something that I was really wanting to show you, because it kind of gives them a softness. And I know you ideally, you could do that with an airbrush, but whilst it gives it a softness, there's also I don't quite know how to describe it, but there's a natural feel to it, because you're actually using the water, you're actually creating a streak the way streaks almost are created in a natural environment. So anyway, enough of my rambling. That's where we're at just now. As I say, looks a bit harsher than it does on the camera, but by the time we start adding other bits and pieces in here, mists and streaks and stuff like that with your brush, you'll not really quite notice it the same, and it'll all start to blend together, particularly once we do that final misting with the grime and the foundation. So yeah, that's where we're at. Moving onwards. Right, so got our panel masked off here. We're going to go in with some of this in the airbrush, 1975 SP Lark Light Grey. They do a dark grey variation as well, which I really like to use for the carbon scoring and blast marks, etc. But this paint also works well as a really nice weathering colour. I've already started to do some streaks and stuff here and there, so already starting to pick that up. Sorry. Sorry, I can't speak and paint at the same time, clearly, today. All we're looking to do is just mist in a bit of soot, if you like, and some streaks. There we go. Right, let's see how that looks when we peel it all back. There we go. Nice. I really like this technique. It helps to define different panels and shades and stuff. It gives us a nice dirty look, weathered without being too over the top and heavy. I just want to come in here with some of these lines as well. We'll just slowly but surely build that up. You can see what we're trying to do here. My streaking game is terrible. So it's almost as if it's been running through something that's been on fire. There is going to be other streaks going across here from those cannons, so we don't want this to be too heavy. We're looking to create the scars of war, if you like, some of the battle damage that these tanks would pick up. There we go. And then we'll just feather in a wee bit at the edge there, just to darken that off. How's that looking? Alright? Yeah, I could live with that. So all we'll do is we'll start to go round about the model with this colour here, and we can do blast marks and bits and pieces. Now, I think I went in a bit too heavy with that, and as I've done before, I've just run over this a wee bit. I've still got a lot to learn with old streaks and stuff like that. There we go. That looks a bit better. We've now got the silver underneath again. Yeah, that's alright. Right, moving on. Right, still using the same colour, SP Art Light. We're just going in and doing a wee bit of... Oh, that was a bit heavy there. We're just going in and doing a wee bit of flooding. Getting some of that dark wash. It's one of those happy little accidents. There we go, cleaned up, looks great. So yeah, we're just getting a wee bit of the paint, blowing into this area here, just to create that dirty look of gunfire and oil and grease into these nooks and crannies here. Because again, look, when I had a look at the reference material, that's what we're seeing in these areas here. So just get all that blown about in there. Flood plenty of paint in there, blow it about, and then what we're left with is our base colour showing through. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about that paint there just now, because I'll do what I done a wee second ago, and we'll get the Q-tip in there. So you can see how that's immediately took on a completely different look. Instant weathering. Sorry, I'll just clean this up as well. You can leave some of that in there. That dirt has a nice effect. So, yep, let's just clean that up a bit. You know, these things are they're fickle at times, these models. So the lighting's no great here. Not any better. What we can do is we can just dab away at some of that. Let's get another one of these. It's done. There's my... Right, just a wee splodge of airbrush thinner on there, and it can help lift off some of that paint at different parts, and we can be left with little tide marks, lighter areas, darker areas. There we go. And then we'll go back in with the airbrush here, and we'll just start misting around about here. Because this area is going to be pretty dirty, I would think. Get that blown in round about in there. Sorry. Use your airbrush just to blow the air, to blow the paint around. Let the paint do the work. Let it create the look for you. You have to trust the process. I mean, already that's starting to pick up exactly what I'm looking for it to pick up. Let's use that Q-tip to clean that a wee bit. Sorry, I keep calling them Q-tips for our brothers and sisters across the water, across the pond in the States. In the UK we call them cotton buds. Yep, you've got to trust in the process. Let the paint do the work for you. It's just about knowing what techniques to use where, how to get your effects, and then just trusting the process. So flooding that in here like that. Sometimes it's misting, sometimes you want to be flooding in the paint. Sometimes it's a combination of both. There we go. See, instant weathering. There you go. Completely changed that within seconds. Still a bit wet just now. Hang on a wee minute. We'll get the hairdryer on that. There we go. We've darkened that area right down. Now, to be honest, that's an area that you're not really going to see much of, but I like to get it done and dusted. You don't know what you're going to see, what you're not going to see. Yeah, really happy with that so far. Like I say, trust the process. Have faith. And then just take your airbrush and just go around the model a wee bit at a time. Find where you want to... So I'm in a bit of a tangle here. Find out where you want to add the details and just go for it. I'm going to move this again for a second. And let's just put a wee bit of misting in here. It just darkens that area slightly. Always have some masking tape on hand as well. That always works out really good for if you want to mask an area off, like here for example. And then what we can do is we can run a wee streak or two down here. Now I know we've already got streaks, but we want to just vary that slightly. Soften up the edges of these other streaks. Add just a wee bit more to it. We don't want it to be too heavy with these because I just think the colour of this it's just going to really stand out and just look way too much. Striking the balance really, isn't it? Just get a wee bit of that in there, and then there we go. It's changed that completely. Don't know if the better right enough, but you know. I think that actually looks too rounded, that one. Let's just take a wee edge off that there. There we go. Yeah. Makes a wee bit of difference. Getting some of that paint into these parts as well. Just adds just these wee tiny wee details. Like that's how it's meant to be. Almost like you'd walk past this on a set of Star Wars or something. Just play around. Find what works for you. Find what works for the model. Really, that's a really important part as well. I would have suggested is actually, is this really what I want for the model? Is this going to suit the model? Anyway, we'll move on. Right, so I've been in with a wee bit of the SP Lark Light in the airbrush, and what I've done is I've just done a few bits of streaks here and there, getting underneath the cannon, using the sort of the wash technique where you're flooding wee bits of thin paint from the airbrush into an area, and then you are using the air from the brush to just blow that around. So we've done bits of that. We've got some streaks coming up here, things, a couple of areas here and there where we've done a wee bit streaks with the Lark Light, but we've got some Lark Dark now in the brush, and what we want to do is, what I want to do now is I want to start the feather and the sort of carbon scoring around about these guns here, and then we'll get the streaks coming back the way, as if when it's firing, the smoke's coming through. We've all seen the film, so we know what it looks like. And so I find that, and I don't want to speak too soon here, but I found that some of the models I've seen of this have been done amazing. Some have been done, I don't want to say poorly because that's unfair, but just more heavily weathered, and I think it just takes the look off it a wee bit. I think it's quite easy to get carried away. It's a bit like the Millennium Falcon actually, you know, the 6 vents at the back of the Millennium Falcon. I think it'd be very easy to get carried away with them and just over weather them. Really what we're looking for is just a wee build up. Just feathering it in a wee bit at a time. We still want to see some colour underneath. And then some of the carbon on top of it. Now what we're going to do here is, because this is already a Lark Dark, we can use this to start to establish, and we can get our streaks coming out here. streaking game isn't the best. That's what I would say. There we go, already. Just move that light a wee bit so you can get a bit better. It's a bit shiny because it's wet still. Build it up slightly. Let's see how that is. A wee dry off. There we go. I always loved this effect on this model. I remember seeing it back in 1999 and been absolutely fascinated by it. I thought, wow, that's amazing, that looks so cool. I know it's probably pretty sad, but you know. But then this model was released in 1999 at the same time as the film came out, and I think around about that time I picked up one and I built it. And I actually base coated it using a rattle can, kind of similar colour to this. And I was quite pleasantly surprised. It was the first time I'd ever actually spray applied any paint in my life. Every time I'd painted a model before that, it'd been with a brush. And at the time I was painting Warhammer models, and I'd learned the dry brush technique, and I went absolutely nuts on this section here. Black paint, right in round about, filled up all this area with black paint, then splodged it, you know, using the dry brush technique, round and round and round and round and round these bits, then streaking back, and you know, the streaks were coming right back here, all the way back. And at the time I was like, wow, that's amazing, that looks really great. And then I actually looked at it after I had built it, and looked at the, sorry, oh, that lighten's any better. Looked at the picture in the box, and then I could feel my soul sinking down. I've really ruined that. But I stuck it up in a shelf in my room and displayed it proudly for a long time, and I was really happy with it. I don't even know what happened to that model. Shame. But having studied the reference material and learned a wee bit more in the years since, I've managed to restrain myself a bit. It's not bad. I'm happy with that. So when I was in with the light grey, I've not done this gun yet. So you can see this one's still pretty much, but this one here's got a bit more weathering on it, and that'll be applied to this one as well. I just wanted to do this and show you this technique just now. And we'll get a blast mark on this. This here's going to be a nice blast mark that I'd like to. I'm going to mask off the silver here with latex, and then we'll get some streaks coming off this, and then we'll unveil the latex, and we'll get a wee bit misting onto it, just to, you'll see what I mean in a second anyway. So yep, that's that. I'll probably mask off another couple other bits here and there just to for a similar effect, and yeah, I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. We'll get this side done next, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okie dokie. Right, thanks for watching the video. It's just a couple of shots of the completed model here. These were taken in direct sunlight, and then just used the eye to erase the background. So actually some of the shots, particularly this one here, a lot of those stains are probably a bit darker than what they are in reality when you look at the actual finished model. But overall it gives you an idea of the general weathering patterns and you know, all the stuff that we look to achieve. This particular section coming up here is the underside here, this part here. This engine section that's just getting zoomed into just now, I lost the video footage of this, doing this. This was really good fun to do, and it was just generally building up browns, oranges, and then finally just a wee bit of greys and stuff, just to give that feel. So listen, just thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers and out.